All right, this is the second part of our cardiovascular disease lesson. Just some of the discussion around your cardiovascular system we've talked about so far is how to help, first of all, understanding what your cardiovascular system is, as well as your respiratory system and how those two systems work together. And now we're going to talk about things that can limit your health in regards to your cardiovascular system. So we're going to be talking in this segment about cardiovascular disease. So cardiovascular disease includes diseases that affect the heart, okay, the heart or the blood vessels. Two common conditions related to cardiovascular diseases include, first of all, atherosclerosis. That's kind of a tough word to say, right? Atherosclerosis is plaque buildup around the arteries. So if you look down here in this little picture, okay, your arteries have an artery wall. The blood flows through this channel right here. But when you start getting these fatty deposits of what we call plaque, it makes this channel narrower for the blood to go through and can cause some problems, all right? So atherosclerosis is the buildup of plaque around these artery walls, okay? This can cause a little bit of a problem for a couple different reasons. First of all, it constricts the blood flow, which is going to affect your blood pressure in an unhealthy way. The other thing that it does is it also causes a hardening. Because of that, it'll cause the walls of these blood vessels to harden. And your blood vessels should have a certain amount of elasticity to them. So when the blood pushes through it, it can kind of expand and contract a little bit with that flow of blood easily. But as they harden, it makes them a little bit more rigid, which can cause problems, especially with blood flow. And then also it can cause tearing of the lining of this inside part of the blood vessel wall. And when that happens, you can get blood clots that'll form. They'll get kicked into the bloodstream and cause problems, which we'll talk about here, which is actually a stroke. It can also cause a heart attack. So, sorry, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. Let's go back and just talk about arteriosclerosis. So arteriosclerosis is the hardening of the arteries. So you need to know what these two things are. Atherosclerosis is the buildup of plaque. Arteriosclerosis is the hardening of the arteries. Both of these conditions can contribute to a stroke or a heart attack. Okay, so we're going to learn about what causes this stuff. A heart attack occurs when the blood supply into or within the heart is cut off or reduced. Okay. Atherosclerosis, so we talked about this a little bit. The blood moves through a healthy blood vessel nice and smoothly, right? The walls of the blood vessel have a nice elasticity to them. And then the blood can kind of travel through uninhibited. But then if you get plaque buildup, these fatty buildups on the outside or the inside walls of your blood vessels, that's going to constrict blood flow and potentially even completely cut off blood flow. If you get blood flow cut off, you can understand how devastating that could be to a part of your body, right? Especially if it happens in an artery that feeds your heart muscle. Right? Your heart muscle to function has to have oxygen. And if this coronary artery gets the blood supply cut off to it, it's going to kill. I mean, you're going to have an entire section or more to potentially your entire heart that could die because of a lack of oxygen. So we've got to keep those blood vessels healthy. Okay. So cardiovascular risk factors, there's things that you can do and there's some things that you can do that can help lower your risk for cardiovascular disease. There's some things you don't have a lot of control over. We're going to talk about both of those right now. Your risk for cardiovascular disease is affected by non-modifiable and also modifiable risk factors. Non-modifiable risk factors, which are risk factors you cannot change, okay, you don't have any control over them. Those include your age, your gender, and your heredity. Okay, as you get older, your risk for heart disease increases. Sorry, I'm going to get rid of that little laser dot there. So as you get older, your risk for heart disease increases. Additionally, men have higher risk than women until women reach menopause, which is when their menstrual period stops. And it's typically in middle ages for women. Modifiable risk factors. And then heredity. So if you have a family history of heart disease, if your parents have had heart disease or your grandparents have had heart disease, you have a higher risk of also having heart disease. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to, but it means you can have a higher risk of it. Modifiable risk factors are things you can change. Okay. This includes things like smoking, stress, diet, physical inactivity. All those things are things you have control over. Eliminate smoking, lower your stress, have a good diet, make sure you're physically active. Those are all things you can do that lower your chances for risk or chances for heart disease. Individuals who smoke are at higher risk of heart disease than non-smokers. People who are chronically stressed are also at a higher risk of heart disease than those who are less stressed. Lastly, individuals who are not physically active or obese are at a higher risk of heart disease than those who are active and have a healthy body fat percentage. So these are things that you can control. So obviously, take them into your hands and lower your risk. Let's talk a little bit about cholesterol and blood pressure. Those are two risk factors that are commonly checked at the doctor's office. The doctor can check to see if you have healthy levels of healthy blood pressure and healthy levels of cholesterol. Sometimes students have these tests measured, but not frequently enough. So this is something you can actually have done when you go to the doctor. For optimal health, you should have your cholesterol and blood pressure taken on a regular basis. Early detection of cardiovascular disease ensures that proper steps can be taken to help reduce further risks associated with cardiovascular disease. So a blood test is going to measure like your cholesterol. It can measure like, if you have too much cholesterol of the wrong kind. And if that's the case, if you're a little bit elevated, or if it's not quite what it needs to be, the doctor can say, hey, you need to do this, and this can actually help correct this. So early detection is a good thing. It's an important thing. Also, having that blood pressure check can help with that as well. So what is cholesterol? Cholesterol is this waxy fat substance that gets into your bloodstream, that's in your blood in our bodies. Our bodies actually need cholesterol to function, so don't think all cholesterol is bad. We do need cholesterol. Your liver makes all the cholesterol it needs to survive. So your liver can create the cholesterol that it needs. Other sources of cholesterol come from food. Cholesterol is found in animal products such as meat, eggs, and whole milk dairy products. If the level of cholesterol gets too high, it can stick to the artery walls and cause serious health problems. 52% of American adults have high cholesterol. That's a lot of people, right? 52% have high cholesterol. So when you go get your blood drawn and have your cholesterol checked, they're going to give you a number, okay? The number, optimal values for total cholesterol are below 200. So you want to be below 200. If your value is above 240, you actually have twice the risk of heart attack as someone whose total is below 200. So detecting that early can help you start making changes to get your cholesterol lower. Cholesterol moves through your bloodstream via what are called lipoproteins. They're either low density or high density. So we refer to those as LDLs or HDLs. Low density lipoproteins are often called the bad cholesterol. So LDL is the bad cholesterol because they contribute to plaque buildup in the blood vessels, which leads to atherosclerosis. To lower cholesterol and LDLs, it is recommended to lower your intake of saturated fats and cholesterol and increase your level of physical activity. So if you have high HDL, okay, you can lower your intake of those things, of saturated fats and cholesterol, and then also increase your physical activity. HDL are often referred to as the good cholesterol. They're responsible for carrying excess harmful cholesterol out of the bloodstream and into the liver for disposal. So your HDL is actually a good number. We want to have HDL. We want to have low LDL. HDLs are typically lower in individuals who smoke, people who are sedentary, and those who are overweight. So you can see if you smoke, you're going to have lower HDL, which if the HDL is taking out the excessive bad LDL, you're not going to have as much HDL to help combat that, right? So don't smoke. People who are sedentary, who sit around too much and don't get out and get exercise, their HDL levels are lower, which is going to make their LDL cholesterol go up. And those who are overweight also have lower levels of HDL. The best way to increase HDL is through aerobic exercise and a healthy diet. We'll go ahead and stop this lecture at this point. And remember, there's a quiz that's associated with this, so make sure you move on and take the quiz. And if you have any questions on any of this stuff, make sure you reach out to your instructor. And once you're finished with this, move on to your next lesson in your module and look for our next segment on cardiovascular health, monitoring your heart.